He started sketching and came up with a big, cantankerous, orange, cynical cat. He needed a name and thought of his grandfather, James A. Garfield Davis, a big, cantankerous, cynical man, and Garfield was born. Well, good day, my friends. We are back today in beautiful Fairmount, Indiana. We've been here several times because this is the hometown of the great James Dean. So whenever I'm close by, I like to stop in, visit the museum, visit his grave, and I'm going to today. However, I'm actually here to see the Garfield stuff because Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, is from this town. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all. It begins right now. This is such a great old school American town. If you just want to experience small town America, this is the perfect place to do it as well. So in order to check out the best of James Dean and the Garfield exhibit, it's all here at the brand new James Dean Museum. Seriously, how can you go wrong with Garfield and James Dean? I've never really shown the Garfield stuff here because they didn't have a whole lot, but they actually said they got some stuff from Jim Davis recently that's really cool, so it should be fun. So this is the incredible James Dean exhibit that I've went pretty extensively into, from his motorcycle here in town to his childhood bedroom that they literally moved everything in from the childhood home. You can go in there and check that out. You can check out his tractor from when he was growing up, his high school car, his Triumph that he drove out in Hollywood, his Letterman sweater from Santa Monica City College. I mean, this place is just loaded. Over there, you have his racing history because he was a race car driver when he wasn't a Hollywood celebrity. Over here, you have costumes from Giant. Over here, you have his personal clothing. So, since the museum does both Jim Davis, Garfield history, and James Dean, I like to promote both to help people come here because this truly is one of the great museums. These are his bongos from when he lived in New York, his shirt. They have several photos of him wearing that. His tape recorder that he would use to learn his lines, there's a photo of him with it. So yeah, it's a pretty amazing history, all the way down to the kitchen sink from his apartment in New York. So I will link some of the James Dean videos I've made at the end of this video if you want to check these out more extensively. Well, let's go see what they have of Jim Davis. So Jim Davis is officially retired now, and they got his very first drafting table that he would do the cartoons on. How incredible. That's probably one of my all-time favorite cartoons, no joke. From the comic strips, to the TV shows, to the movies. I like them all. Believe it or not, I go see them all. John Arbuckle, Odie, Garfield, of course, manning the controller. Garfield's kind of the leader of that house. I also said they got some of his earliest drawings from when he was like a student here in Fairmount. So check this out. This is one of the comic strips and the original drawing for it right there. And the museum here also will sell kind of old cool things, like Garfield was heavily merchandised. And I got a really cool alarm clock here of Garfield. One trip. Look at that thing. Little end table. And then look at this. They have another of his drafting tables too, actually. That is so cool. Gosh, how many strips did he do here? I mean, that's just incredible. He even lives kind of close by. Like, I mean, I think within the next 20 miles. Here's some original stills. I was a big fan of Garfield and Friends. There's another one. And then look, a Garfield bowling ball. And this was actually Jim Davis's, and it's pictured with him right there. How cool. I love it. And I don't know how far it stretches in Indiana, but when we first came in the front doors, when you saw that Garfield out front dressed like James Dean, they actually have several Garfields around Indiana that you can go visit. I think there's one in the next town over, actually. Oh yeah, 1962, right in this little corner, the very bottom where it says proof editors. He's listed over there.
Here's the staff.
James Davis. Oh yeah, everyone. Sorry, Katie's been here the whole time, but she's never been to the James Dean part, so she's been looking around while I've been showing you guys Garfield.
This is amazing. This is
How
so
cool is this whole place, right?
It is absolutely cool.
So James Dean would have graduated in 1949. And there's his class photo. Let's see if we can find Jim Davis over here on the Fairmount class pictures. Okay, so he graduated over here in 1963. There he is. Wow. I would love to interview him. I've actually written him a letter trying to, but I think when he retired, he retired. I don't think he responds to fan mail or any of that stuff anymore that I could see online. Some of the plates. There's Odie. This is great. I love this stuff. John Arbuckle down here. Cool desk lamp. And there's some books down here. And another picture of Jim Davis. And they actually have a wall that tells Jim Davis a story. Oh, look, lava lamp. So here we go. Here they tell a lot of the story. James Robert Davis. There he was. He was born in Marion, which is the next town over. That's actually where James Dean's mom is buried. It says he grew up on a small farm near Fairmount, the same town where James Dean was raised. Jim's father raised Black Angus cattle, and his mother managed the farm, her 2 sons, and 25 assorted cats that were always underfoot. It says hanging around the barnyard cats gave Jim an appreciation for and understanding of cats. As a child, he was asthmatic and was forced to stay inside from the farm animals and their hay feed. Removed from his farm chores and often bedridden, he looked for ways to entertain himself. His mother would often shove a pencil and pad in his hands and urge him to draw. His early drawings were so bad that he had to label everything just to identify it. His mother, Betty Davis, was a talented artist herself and taught him how to draw. After graduating from Fairmount High in 1963, he enrolled in Ball State University in Muncie as an art and business major. Little side note, Ball State's where David Letterman went, and David Letterman's donated money there. And also, that's where Bob Ross filmed his painting show in Muncie on Ball State campus in one of the houses there. And it's now just something you can go visit. So then it says, he distinguished himself by earning one of the lowest cumulative grade point averages in the history of the university. And it said, incidentally, a fellow classmate was David Letterman. After college, he worked for a local advertising agency. In 1968, he got his break. He had gone to tumbleweed cartoonist Tom Ryan and asked him to critique his work. Instead, Tom asked him to become his assistant. Wow. Did his backgrounds, balloons, and borders. The experience taught Jim the discipline required for daily strip. And then it said, during his stint with Tom, he worked at night and on weekends developing his own comic strip. He first started with Norm the Gnat, and then Norm ran weekly in local papers. And then it says after 5 years of doing Norm Gnat, Jim drew a giant foot falling out of the sky, crushing Norm in his last comic appearance. Jim wasn't through with comic strips, he just needed to find a character that everyone could relate to. And he said after his experience with Norm, he was looking for a character that would be funny and have a broad appeal. He wanted to use an animal. He noticed that there were a lot of dogs in comics, like Marmaduke and Snoopy, but very few strips with cats. He started sketching and came up with a big, cantankerous, orange, cynical cat. He needed a name and thought of his grandfather, James A. Garfield Davis, a big, cantankerous, cynical man. And Garfield was born. Says in his early drawings, Garfield didn't have any stripes. Jim spent the next year developing the comic and the characters. And in 1978, after dozens of rejections, he received a phone call informing him that United Features Syndicate had accepted Garfield. So Garfield made his debut in 41 newspapers. June 19, 1978, after 3 months, Chicago Sun-Times canceled Garfield. Jim said, I thought we were sunk. However, within a few days of pulling the comic, the Sun-Times had heard from 1,300 angry readers who insisted that Garfield be reinstated. So he came back. He then appeared in 2,100 newspapers, was read by 200 million people. Guinness World Records named Garfield the most widely syndicated comic strip in the world. So this is Dorothy, and Dorothy runs this museum, and in the time that I've known Dorothy, in probably 4 or 5 years, I've seen this museum grow exponentially. It's gotten to be such a cool experience, and you were telling me that you have some new stuff in here that Jim Davis, which before there was kind of minimal, but now you've gotten quite a bit more since.
Yes, we've really been expanding our Garfield exhibit, and so we just got, this is Jim Davis's original animation table.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and you can see it kind of spins. And then Jim Davis, attended Fairmount High School, and the newspaper was called The Breeze. And you can see here, it says, Jim Davis will furnish Breeze cartoon series.
That is so cool. Because, we just read over there on the wall that it says he is in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the most widely syndicated cartoonist of all time. Right here in this little town he started.
It's pretty incredible.
I know. You have James Dean, maybe one of the most amazing mythical actors ever, and the biggest cartoon character ever. Such a small little town.
Who would think, And then these are some of his earliest comics.
Oh wow, Herman.
And you could see even then the talent is there, the creativity is there. They talk about the quality of his line. You can tell a very sure hand created these comics.
Does he ever, have you ever met him? Has he ever come to the museum or anything?
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Davis, but I'm hoping he'll come
Mr. Davis,
one of these
please
days.
come visit the museum because we all would love to have that photo of you visiting your stuff here. I mean,
Yes.
I love seeing that. I was just visiting Ronald Reagan's childhood home, and they were telling us, oh yeah, he came back and toured it after he was president, and so it's so cool to see people revisit their history, you know?
Yeah, it really is.
This is so cool what you guys have done here. Yeah, and his name is right there under honorable achievement. Jim Davis. Even the little puppets. Homeless Garfield. Caddy Graham. And also, both ended up on Life magazine, James Dean and Garfield. Man, Fairmount, amazing. And when you think you've seen everything, then you look up and you see a Garfield globe. This is great, and Garfield is on the globe, in the globe. They have done an absolutely incredible job with this new museum. It's not even been open, I think, not even a year yet. It used to be in a smaller house, so they've done an incredible job. They have town history, James Dean history, Garfield, Jim Davis history. I mean, it's really incredible what they've been able to do here. And my gosh, you can even walk inside of James Dean's bedroom. I know some of you saw me walk past and were like, oh, come on, man, you're not going to show it? There, I'll show it. This is exactly the way it was set up when he left the last time. The family left it that way for years and years and years. They always had a plan to do something like this with it, and they did. Recreated the exact dimensions. Everything from his room is exactly the way it should be, where it should be, measured out exactly the right way, so that you can feel like you are in his bedroom right now. Pretty amazing experience. This is all at the James Dean Museum in Fairmount, Indiana. So we're gonna wrap it up here at the museum, James Dean and Garfield Museum. And Jim Davis is still alive, but James Dean, of course, is still not. So we will go out and visit Jimmy's final resting place. And I'll also show you where that was taken. There he is, the great James Dean's final resting place. He gets a ton of visitors and a ton of kisses. His headstone was stolen at one point, so it's not been a peaceful rest, but here he is in his hometown. Rest easy, Jimmy. Before we left the museum, I told you I'd show you where that photo was taken, and it was right here. This was Jimmy's farm. This was where he, after his mother died, he came back and lived here until he went off to make his way on his own out in Los Angeles. He joined his father out there, but what's interesting is that when Jimmy's mom passed away, they actually had her viewing in the living room here of this house. Marcus, his cousin who still lives here, very friendly, was telling me that, yeah, back in those days, that was how you did it. You had it in a family member's house. So Jimmy would kind of have nightmares because of remembering his mother's, you know, his mother's last moment that he saw her was here in her casket. So he had a lot of great memories here. Over on the barn over here, they still have his basketball hoop and his handprints, and just a really cool piece of history still left. You can appreciate Jimmy. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed our Garfield, Jim Davis, and James Dean Day from Fairmount, Indiana. Have a great night and goodbye.